Tony.
How are you?
Oh, I'm all right. I'm just still I've been up for a couple hours, but it takes me a while before I get my brain kicks in.
Yeah, I hear you. So you're in California then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's going to be interesting the way the show goes down because I'm trying to cover all these bases. 30th anniversary. We've got a new album, and then we've got Deanna as a guest. So there's going to be
Yeah.
kind of like three segments to the show where we'll start off maybe with the Painkillers and our more recent stuff.
Yeah.
Bring Deanna up, play a set of her stuff, maybe about three songs featuring her. And then we'll put her in the saxophone, chair and finish out with doing some of the old stuff that we used to do with Keith. So
Okay. I'm not sure what you meant with Keith, but I just want to let our listeners know that when we say Deanna, we're referring to Deanna Bogart, who is a fantastic musician in her own right, and she's not only musical partners, but it looks like business partners and love partners too.
yeah.
So yeah, that's really great. And she actually did some playing on your new record.
Yeah, she played all the horn arrangement and all saxophones on that song called "The Hustle." Now, there's somewhere along the line, things got mixed up in the publicity department. Somehow they got, because I also have Keith playing on the record.
Which happens. Okay, well, now
Yeah.
when you say Keith, tell our listeners who you're talking about in the history there.
Well, Keith Crossan,
Okay.
our original saxophone player from the the 90s when we started the band.
Yeah.
He was with me for 20 years, and it's interesting, looking back at 30 years of doing this and all the different phases that the band has gone through, and
I remember playing with Keith was with you because the first time you and I actually played together, you invited me up to play with you at the Trough, which is where you're going to be on March 18th for your 30th anniversary performance. But the event was the North American Guitar Festival, and I think Clapton was a part of it, and you were part of it, and we were part of it with Jeff Healey. It was in the city. I mean, they had different stages, like Clapton played at the auditorium or HSBC Arena, and he had Doyle Bramhall open, and my band did a set before Jeff Healey at Thursday in the Square, and then we opened up for you at the Trough. And that's where
wow.
you and I started playing together, was for that, because I wasn't sure if you were aware, but that was all part of a greater blues festival for the North American Blues Festival that was happening for a bunch of years here.
Wow. You know what? I don't remember. I remember playing the Trough with you, but I don't remember being a part of a big festival like that. I may have known or may not have known that at the time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the case. I mean, I can look back. I've got some records of it, but the Trough has been, like your mainstay for a lot of years when you come and perform, and
Yeah.
rightly so. It's a great venue for you and what you do. It's such a classy, upscale venue, but you can still get down and do the lowdown thing in there, and it still translates. Um, so, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the new record because you've got this album called "The Bluesman Came to Town," and it's more than just an album with 12 songs on it. This is a story from start to finish, and you're going to be playing a bunch of those tunes, like you said, at your show coming up.
Yeah.
You worked with Tom Hambridge on this, and he's from Buffalo, and tell me about that process. And in fact, you broke the news on my show when you and Tinsley came through. I said, "What's going on? What's going on with the new record?" You said, "Well, I just, teamed up with Tom, and we're going to do a record." And that was the first time the news broke, was on my radio show. So it was great.
Yeah, that's true. Tom and I have known each other for a lot of years. Remembering back in about 99 or 2000, we did a tour with Susan Tedeschi, BB King, and Buddy Guy. Well, not necessarily in that order. I mean, BB King, Buddy Guy, Susan Tedeschi, and then us opening the shows. And
Still, man, you were part of an epic lineup.
it was an epic lineup, and man, what a great time we had. And and that was man, it's over 20 years ago. And so we were at a different age, and I can remember it was really exciting times, and we would all hang out a lot because there's a tour like that going on, you're playing amphitheaters. And so there's a system and a setup, a way things go every day.
Right.
It's the same promoter going from, one town to the next, putting on all these shows. And so there was just kind of a way that everybody went about their day. And you'd look forward to certain things. There was this backstage catering where you can kind of meet up with all the other band members and, the members of BB's band, a bunch of really cool guys that we got to be good friends with over the years. And Tom was playing with Susan at that time. And it was not long
Right.
after.
That was his first Grammy nomination, was with Just Won't Burn for doing her record.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, she had already gone on to another record by then and was becoming, a pretty big deal. And Tom was playing drums for her. So, we would hang out and over the years we'd run into each other in various situations, festivals and most recently blues cruises, the legendary rhythm and blues cruises.
Right. You just got off one.
Just got off another one. And I caught him on one of those cruises and said, hey, because we had been talking about doing a record together for years, and the timing never worked out for one reason or another,
Sure, you're both extremely busy.
And the timing seemed right, I had an idea, and I wanted a producer like Tom, somebody could help me kind of take things up a notch. And I ran the idea by him, my concept for the album, and he liked it. And we got it by Bruce Iglauer, and he didn't hate it.
I like how you put that.
He didn't hate the idea. I was just we have to, it's anytime you're getting out of the box a little bit, it makes Bruce nervous.
Sure. Don't I know it? Don't I know
so,
it? Yeah.
I hate to use the term, but really the idea that came up was a blues opera, like a rock opera.
Yeah.
A blues opera. I had never heard of anybody doing one before, but so we basically wanted the same concept as a rock opera, only doing the kind of music that I do. And I just thought, I think that's a solid idea. And even Bruce thought it was a pretty good idea. And then he said, only thing about it is got to make sure that if the songs all are telling a story and there's a sequence to that story, and then you just have to make sure that each song stands on its own. So if somebody heard that song, any one of those songs, without hearing the rest of the album, the song would still be good and still make sense.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's a legit, concern. And so we approached it that way. And yeah, and I'm really happy with the way it came out. I have to tell you, I was nervous about it because, I am trying to do something pretty different.
Yeah, well, it did turn out great. In fact, I have an interesting perspective on the process too, because like after you had made the announcement on the show that you were working together, then I ended up teaming up with Tom to do my last record. And it was we recorded the stuff that we recorded with Tom just before you were scheduled to go down to Nashville. And then you had to do some cancellations because of the pandemic emerging and everything happening in 2020. So while you were, when you did end up getting the record going and you were recording, I was sending mix notes back and forth with Michael, his, principal mixing engineer. Yeah. And he said, yeah, I'm working with this band out of California, San Francisco or something. And he didn't mention you. He's just so nonchalant like that. And I was thinking about it. And I'm like, So whenever he was referring to it, I was like, it's got to be Tommy's record he's talking about. So I was excited to hear how it turned out, and it did turn out great. I love the variety of the songs on there. It's very guitar centric. Every song almost starts out with a cool, guitar driven riff. The tones are great. Your singing is as great as ever, and the songwriting is excellent. Between what Richard, Tom, and you contributed on that, and the mixing, the flow from song to song. I mean, I like where it blends your heavy, hard, like Roadhouse blues side with your soul R&B side, and then there's Hustle, which has that loop, that funky drum loop. It's almost like James Brown, a modern James Brown kind of thing going through that. And then the story, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I get the impression this is somebody who sees the opportunity, who catches that blues bug, goes on that journey, almost like the Wizard of Oz, so to speak. And then you start to see the man behind the curtain. You see the business for what it is. And then you're like, well, I'm really starting to miss some of the comforts and the relationships of home. And it kind of goes into that direction towards the end.
Well, so really more than the Wizard of Oz, so much it's more it's based on a hero's journey.
Sure.
So if you were something, something like the Odyssey, and I had just
Sure.
read a book called The Alchemist, which is one of a thousand stories that are based on this idea, and so I had to pull a story out of the air. I knew I wanted it to be a story, like a rock opera would have a story running through it, and then. And I thought, and I have there's a lot of people in my life that I bounce things off of, people in my my band, and in my business, and friends and family. And I just talk about what I'm up to all the time. I'm pretty open about these things. And at the same time, I was trying to keep it a secret. Because I didn't want anybody else to get the idea before mine came out, like, hey, wait a minute,
Yeah.
blues opera, that's a great idea.
Well, it is a great idea.
Trying to keep it a secret. But along the way, talking about this with different people, the approach to this story, started to unfold for me. And then I created it basically out of thin air, using my own life and stories that I've heard from, all the cats that I've known over the years in the business, and how things usually go. Anyway, it was an interesting process, different than anything I've ever done before, and I'm glad that it's been received so well.
It certainly has. I think I was messaging with you on a couple different topics as you were going through the process, and before the release date. And I think one of them was the suggestion that you could take this concept to, like a Broadway production or something like that, if you really were that ambitious, you know what I mean? And not to say that a guy like you, who has had such a lucrative career for 30 years in the blues, isn't ambitious, but I'm just saying, like, that would be quite an undertaking to take this concept onto a theatrical level.
Well, if I wasn't still, actively, working and touring and trying to keep this Tommy Castro show, on the tracks, because I plan to kind of keep working the way I've been working all these years for a while longer. I don't know exactly how much longer, but for a while longer. And so it would take, in order to do something like that, I'd kind of have to put everything on hold and concentrate on a thing like that. And it's just too lofty of an idea right now. But
Sure.
That could be the case one day.
Someday in the future.
It could be something that comes out in the future. Or if somebody approached me, that does that sort of thing, somebody who puts on stage productions, says, hey, I'd like to do a story on Bluesman Came to Town. We could strike some kind of a deal. I'd be open to something like that. But as far as me trying to produce something like that, I don't think so.
Sure. I mean, that's a huge undertaking in its own
But it's a cool idea. I'd love to see it happen, man. I think it'd make
Sure.
a great stage show.
You know, if anything ever happens where we're, you know, relegated to being at home again for an extended period, now you have something, you know, like this to focus on. I'm sure you're going to want to do another record too. You know, it's what we like to do is to produce and create. But I think that would be a good idea for the future. So 30 years on the road, and your relationship with Randy McDonald, your bass player, he's going to be with you um, at the 12th show on the 18th, March 18th. And so aside from this particular album's material, are you going to and what you're going to be doing with Deanna, are you going to be focusing on anything else in particular from any period? Because I remember seeing you like on there's a few things I wanted to mention. One of them was I remember seeing you on NBC as the house band for this comedy show. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Was there anything, you know, from that period that you might want to, you know, address or bring into to the show?
Well, yeah, because that comedy show, Comedy Showcase, was on NBC. It came on after Saturday Night Live. That was back in the '90s when we put our first album out, and it went well. You know, it was a show that ran through the whole year, but the shooting, producing the show only took about 2 weeks. So they did two shows.
Okay.
They would record 2 shows a night for 8 days. It was 16 shows. And then they would just rerun them and stuff like that. And
That's
and
great.
on the
Yeah.
subject, Louis Anderson, the host of that show, just passed away recently.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
He was really great to us, man.
He sure was. I remember when he was in Coming to America as the cashier in the fast food place, McDowell's.
He's hilarious. I
Yeah.
remember one time he looked at Randy, you know, Randy had his conch, he had that big, his hair was piled high in those days. You know, our bass player, Randy McDonald, had his hair stacked up.
Sure.
And
All of us had more hair.
And Louis looked at him one time, he goes, look at his hair. You could land an airplane on that thing.
Beautiful.
Or
Yeah.
he would show anyway. But the thing about that is those the 3 albums we wound up doing that show for 3 seasons, and I think we pulled songs from our first album, Exception to the Rule, and Can't Keep a Good Man Down, and I think that might have been about it for that show. So, but we'll definitely. So here's the idea. We've been going out on tour in the last couple of years, you know, with Tinsley. We just did
Right.
we did a tour with Marcia Ball last fall, and we found that packaging up with other artists is really a good idea. You know, we could play a little bit, you know, nicer venues and stuff like that by, you know, pulling the
Sure.
tickets from a couple of acts
Yeah.
that are kind of on the same level, right? Instead of just getting local, regional support acts on the show, we just travel around as a package with 2 headliners, kind of thing. And so, so doing that, you know, this time around, we're thinking we're going to do our 30th anniversary tour. We'd still like to package up, and we want to kind of be able to play our catalog from the old days. You know, when the original band was a saxophone, bass, drums, and guitar, 4-piece band with saxophone, with Keith Crossan on saxophone. And so that was a certain kind of a sound that we had back then. And it was a little different. And I think that really is one of the reasons we stood out a little bit and were able to get some traction early on, because we had something a little different to offer. And then as the years went by, the band grew bigger. You know, we wound up with a horn section and keyboards and the whole 9 yards, and that we did for 7 or 8 years. And then I decided to pull it back a bit, do the Painkillers, a little bit leaner, meaner, guitar-driven approach. You know, just to do something different and keep moving forward and push myself as a guitar player a little more.
Sure.
You know, make me work a little harder. Because with that big band with horns and everything, it's easy to just sit back and You don't have to work that hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot less weight to carry, that's for sure, than doing it in a 3-piece or 4-piece or something like that. So,
Yeah. So, well,
you know,
anyway, so the idea is that so now we're trying to do a 30th anniversary tour, and we want to do a little bit of everything. And we still wanted to package up with another artist. So having Deanna uh, just join us without bringing a whole separate band along, because we've got a lot of material to cover.
right.
So she'll join the band as a saxophone player on some of our old material. And there will be a segment of the show where we just become Deanna's backup group, and we'll back up Deanna Bogart on her songs. And there will be a segment of the show where it's just us four guys doing our painkillers stuff. So we got to it's got to be at least a 90 minute to 2 hour long show, or if preferably we'll do 2 sets and take a break in the middle.
That's a good idea.
That's what the show's going to be like. Should be pretty interesting.
Some of the material that I'm sure myself and other people will be looking forward to is like Lucky in Love and Can't Keep a Good Man Down. And I remember seeing a viral video that went around of Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. And I think he was on American Idol, right? He was one of the big judges on that. So there's this video that went around of him. He must have been listening to either a CD or satellite radio, maybe XM Bluesville or something. And Lucky in Love by You was on, and he was singing it and like sticking his head out the sunroof.
He was playing harmonica in the back of a limousine and singing along. He's singing along with some of it, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. And I don't know if he had any idea who it was or what the song was or anything, but he clearly liked it.
Absolutely, that was great. And speaking of Can't Keep a Good Man Down, I think that's a really great idea and a way to summarize, what it is that you're about in a way. And what I mean by that is, there's definitely some extra meanings there that you could read into. But you've had this career where you went solo from the Dynatones, who were on Warner Brothers, I think in like 2009 or something like that. Am I correct? That's when you
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So
no, that would have been the earlier than that. That was
I think Alligator was 2009. So this is much earlier when you went on by yourself. But my point is that you've really showed some staying power and Can't Keep a Good Man Down. Your show is, even though you've got this you've always had this sex appeal to you, this masculine, cool sex appeal thing going on for yourself, along with your musical talents of being a great singer and guitar player and writer, that whole triple threat thing. But your show is also, when you say good man, your show is also, something you could bring your kids to. It's wholesome. It's a good show. So it's really got a broad appeal. And there's not a lot of artists like you. And I think that's a big part of why you're you and why you're successful. So and by the way, who took those pictures of you recently in like Hollywood and all that? Was that Deanna?
No, she was with me on the shoot, but there's a girl named Victoria Smith. She's a great photographer.
That's capturing what I'm talking about in terms of your essence, as an artist. Still, after all these years, you've got the looks, the sound, and the whole vibe, and what you present as an artist is all that, can't keep a good man down thing. It's lacking even nowadays. I think it's lacking.
Interesting point you bring up that it can be a family event. It often is, festivals and stuff like that. But there's a whole generation of little kids that grew up and are now in their 20s or 30s that their parents used to bring them to shows, and they still come around. In fact, I'm looking at something hanging on my wall over here. I'll show you this.
Wait a minute. Do you have pants on?
Yeah. I was about 20 years ago, some little kid and her mom brought this to me as a gift. She had done this bit of art, and that's my
That's
old
great.
scrap, right, on a piece of wood. And she did one for Randy too with his pink P bass. And anyway, about last May, in the middle of the pandemic, we were doing a show in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and this, girl, she looks to be about 30 years old, something like that, and again, that she was just talking to me at the table there at the merchandise table, and then it came up. She goes, "Do you still have the guitar art that I made for you, when I was 10 years old?" I said,
Wow.
"Yeah, I do."
Yeah.
So I do like that, I really do like that. A lot of times we'll get these kids, young people. If there's ever a young person in the audience and they seem excited about the show and they come to see us, there's usually some kind of connection like that their parents brought them around when they were little.
Yeah.
I love that,
That's important because, as you know, the blues, genre and demographic isn't exactly, increasing in large numbers, and it's important to keep this going however
I think it
way we
is
can.
increasing though. I think in the last, just before the pandemic hit, and it seems to still be going on right through the whole thing, because there were a whole bunch of people trying to literally keep things alive, and but I see that the audience is growing out there now. There's a lot of good, exciting new acts. There's some really great music coming out, I don't know if it's because of YouTube or what, but there's just an amazing amount of young guitarists coming up on the
Sure.
Blues Cruise in January. It was pretty intimidating, listening to some of these kids, young guys just tearing it up. They're just way beyond their years in accomplishment, and it's all driven by blues guitar. That's the thing that gets them the most interested. And some of them are very traditional in the way they play, but then they are advanced at the same time. And there's too many of them to remember the names. But while we're on the subject, I dug this out. I've been kind of keeping this in a case under the bed, in recent times, with my old 66 Strat.
I love it. Yeah, that's
so
what you had
that on
played.
the 30th anniversary tour.
Oh, that's great.
This is
I'm looking forward to
the
seeing that in
guitar I
person.
played the most on almost every record that I made right up until about 2012, maybe. I started using something else.
You've been using the Delaney guitars, and I think right now you've got a giveaway happening.
You're giving away one of these guys.
Yeah.
And all you have to do to win it is like and share one of our gig posts. So like when we come to Buffalo and you see a post on our Facebook, you just share that and you like it, and there's a little list of things you got to do. But
I'm going on Facebook right now. I'm going on Facebook.
You're automatically entered into the contest to get, and then we'll draw a name on Facebook Live. Like we'll find a fishbowl or something like that and put all the names in there of everybody who participated throughout the stretch. What is it, from March through sometime in May? Sometime after that, we're going to do a drawing and give one of these away. But it's a cool guitar, man. I was trying to come up with a guitar that I didn't have to change guitars throughout the night to get different sounds. I became fond on certain songs. I like the sound of a humbucker. I started playing that Firebird with the mini humbuckers in it. It's a different sound, the Gibson sound, of course, from Fender. And I wanted that, but I would miss the Strat. And I was just too lazy, or the show's moving too fast to be switching guitars all the time and I don't have a guitar tech on stage with me all the time. So I can't have somebody just tossing guitars at me.
Yeah.
And even that, it would still, you got to pause and take a minute to slow down to switch guitars. So I thought, how can I get this, humbucker sound and a Strat sound and maybe even a cool, funky old P90 sound all on one guitar? And it doesn't transform itself into three completely different guitars. But when you switch those pickups or mix and match them, you do have there are a lot of different sounds you can get. And this is a handmade. This is probably the coolest thing about it. It's made by hand in a shop in Texas by one guy who makes one guitar at a time.
Yeah, Michael Delaney.
He makes the neck, he makes the body, he gets all the electronics, puts them in. This thing is ported, so it's a little lighter than.
Oh, nice. I was wondering about that because that looks heavy if it's a solid body.
Yeah, so he digs holes inside the body to make it a little lighter, and it also resonates a little more.
Sure.
And the finish on it is a light finish, so it doesn't choke the tone. Also tends to resonate, get better sustain. And then it's got the strings go through the body like a Stratocaster.
Like a hardtail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
That is great. So 30 years, and when did you start playing Buffalo? Tell me about some of your Buffalo appearances that you remember, because I think the first time I saw you was at the old Lafayette Tap Room on Washington Street. And
wow.
I was at that show, and I remember watching you. And that may have been the first time we met, because I remember coming up to you after your show and commenting about what a great job you did on Buddy Guy's My Time After a While. I mean, it was just, I was like, man, this guy is legit, real deal,
I have that on the list.
Do you really?
Yeah, I have that song on the list for our revisiting, the early days. Yeah.
Now I have to come.
Yeah. Yeah, because that song has a cool little horn riff in it. There's a little horn saxophone part. So I thought that, and I, I've written some of my own slow blues since then, and I like to switch it up and play different ones. And so that song it was a 90s tune, and I played it every night for years. And it was one of those songs that just got left behind as new members came into the band, and we never worked it up. So it's on the list to work up for some rehearsals next week.
Oh, okay. You still rehearse?
Yeah, we're going up to the Bay. I go up to the Bay Area, where the band is still based out of the Bay Area, even though I live down here in Palm Springs area. It's only an hour flight back home. And I live 10 minutes from the airport now here in Cathedral City. So
that's great.
So I would just go up there. We could rehearse in the Bay, rework the show a little bit. And one of the things I plan to do is, dig out some of those songs that we really kind of need the saxophone on. And Deanna's going to be there to cover all that for us. And it should be a pretty exciting show.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. March 18th.
I need 3 hours to do what I want to do, but I got to put it into 2 somehow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you've got a career, and how many albums have you actually released in all this time?
I think it's something like 19.
Oh, geez. So yeah, I mean, 3 hours might not even cut it. You know what I mean? When you've got that much material, I mean, you figure, each album is 45 minutes to an hour, depending on if it's a regular one or live or something. You've got 19 of them, to really cherry pick, some of the best stuff for all that. I mean, would probably take more than 3 hours. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's like 3 songs off of Ride as Rain alone that I feel like I have to do, because they were songs that we did a lot back in the day. Get a lot of requests for them now, and we just don't. We have too much. We just never get around to doing those songs again. So I was trying to get like maybe 1 song off of each album, and even then, that's a lot. That would be 19 or 20 songs. So I don't know how I'm going to do this, Tommy. I still figuring it out.
Yeah, but I'm sure even if you decide to, to do an extended show. Nobody's going to be getting up and leaving at any point. It's like they're there because they're diehard Tommy fans and they love the music and the atmosphere too. Because I notice just as somebody who goes out to see live music, separating myself from being a musician, there are just those artists that bring this sense of anticipation and excitement. Like when you're waiting in the pre-show wings, when you're waiting for the show to start, there's that anticipation. Of course, Buddy Guy is the maximum on that scale, where the anticipation is electric, and as soon as he walks out there, it's like, I mean, he doesn't have to do anything. He just stands there and throws up his hands, and people just go nuts. But
Yeah.
but you're still on that, on that dynamic scale of anticipation, where when you come out, people are like, yeah, here it is, and it's time. It's going to be great.
Oh man, that's a nice thought, because I remember getting to watch Buddy come out, and you're right. He just walks out on stage. He looks at the crowd and smiles, and
Right.
they go nuts. And I remember his old keyboard player, Tony. Oh man, it was the guy that was on tour with him back in those days. I forget his last name now,
Is it
but
with
he
a
was from
Z?
Chicago. Might have been Tony Z.
Tony Zamagni?
Yeah, that was it.
Tony
Yeah,
Z.
exactly.
Yeah. No,
I
no
wanted to say
relation.
Tony Z, but I thought maybe I was thinking Tommy Z, but it was Tony Z. And
Yeah,
and he would say, he goes, man, all he has to do is flush that $1 million smile, and the crowd goes wild.
that's right. It's true. It's true. But you've got I mean, you've absorbed that from so many of these artists, because back in your formative days back in San Francisco, I believe you were able to see Buddy Guy and Junior Wells and Taj Mahal and Albert King and all these bands come through and see them firsthand. And then I remember seeing a lot of them myself when they came to Buffalo. My first blues concert was seeing B.B. King. So
Wow.
these artists had such a potency to them that you take a piece of that with you. I mean, if you become a musician, I mean, it just becomes a part of you, and you bring a little bit of that to your artistry, to your audience as a performer too. And you've definitely done great things with what Buddy did for you and those other artists, because and it's important to see it in person, because just to get back to the situation we had in 2020. I was reluctant to do a lot of live streaming, and here's my PayPal, here's my Venmo, pay me, I'm a musician, I'm out of work, because we're giving it away for free the rest of the time, and then all of a sudden people are out of work and the pandemic hits, and you're like, okay, well, unless the quality is really there, I really don't want to be giving this away, because I don't want it to replace the real thing. I don't want this to become the new thing, you know.
Right.
So seeing that in person, seeing that blues in person, and you expressed it with some of these younger artists that are coming up. You've got to see it in person to really get it organically into your
Oh yeah.
soul.
There's
You
nothing
know,
like live. There's nothing like live, you know, uh, live music, being in the room with it, and all different kind of venues. My favorite place to see anybody, is like a 500 seat venue at the most. You don't want to be in a little tiny bar. Sometimes that's not the best way to hear a great act. You don't want to be in a big arena. That's not the greatest way to see anybody. I like those mid-sized venues, and fortunately for us, the Trough is exactly that kind of venue.
that's just what you read my mind. The Trout
Yeah,
is
and a lot of that's the kind of venues we zero in on these days. We have a new agency. It's a crossover agency, and they have a great relationship with all these performing arts centers around the country, and they vary in size and style, but they're sometimes old theaters that have been converted into performing arts centers, or they were built as performing arts centers, but they're usually, let's face it, our crowd is not the kind of crowd that wants to stand up and party and drink and go
right.
until 2 a.m. anymore. We all remember those days, and it was great, but that's not the way it is anymore. you really have to, you really have to provide, and you know, and that said, I mean, we got by in those days a lot, I think, on just a high energy show that we put on. And it was only high energy because we were super excited all the time.
Right, 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 right.
And a lot, and I feel like I still had a lot to learn, you know, as far as
Right.
guitar.
I feel like, you know, a lot of times the energy is acceptable for, you know, for the time being, for a temporary show, that people walk away having felt something and having a great experience. But I would always love to have that balance of musical precision and that energy to really make it, you know, damn near perfect. You know, so there'd be some nights where I get off stage and people are going nuts and stuff like that, and everybody's patting you on the back, and I'm like, you know, I just don't feel like I played every note perfectly or sang every note perfectly or the band did everything perfectly. And I think one time my drummer said something, dude, he goes, own it, you know? And you know, that's a little bit of a vote for the energy, but I just feel like
Well, there's
um,
nothing, everything's got to have a balance. You
yeah,
know, you got to, the obviously the best thing is a combination of those things. But what I'm saying is early on, I don't feel like I feel like I still had a long way to go as as an artist, as a musician, as a writer, as a player, as a singer. I still had a
right,
lot to learn, but we were
sure,
able to gather, we were able to get by, not get by, but create excitement and draw, you know, draw good crowds. I mean, that's why how we got signed to a record deal early on, is because there was a lot of people turning up at our shows, and we worked our way up from a bar that held 65 people to the Fillmore Auditorium that held 1,400, and selling out the place. And that happened over a period of time in the San Francisco Bay Area. And still, you know, once I really, you know, I was just having fun doing what I love to do. I've been playing blues guitar since I was about 11 or 12 years old.
yeah,
And I was doing what I love to do. I was having fun. I had at some point decided I wanted to do this for a living. I don't know if you wanted to call what I had in mind a career, but I just thought if I could just make enough, if I could make my living playing guitar, that would be great. And that was as high as I had my goals set at the time,
sure,
was just to make enough money to live on. And then from there, I realized, hey, you know, um, I was kind of learning on the job, basically. And
okay.
now 30 years have gone by, and I've learned quite a bit. You know? Things are,
And you've had like a remarkable career. I mean, you've played with your heroes, you've recorded with your heroes, John Lee Hooker, BB King, and you know, I wonder. I mean, since you may not have had those initial goals, you know, that some people have, you know, really lofty, long-term, high expectations. Do you feel like you've exceeded them just by doing what you love and
well,
looking back?
I developed a, you know, I developed a set, I developed a plan along the way, and I did have some goals, but it's just, they started out small. That's all. I just
Yeah,
had, I just looked at the next thing that I needed to do. And I would do that. And then I go, okay, we did that. Now what's the next thing I want to do? As opposed to having this, you know, complete plan on how it's going to work out. Because, you know, there's an old saying, you know, you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans.
right.
Because
Men plan, God laughs. Yeah,
yeah,
sure,
you know, you're just, well, I mean, you can have a plan, but it's not likely that it's going to go exactly that way. And
sure.
so I kept changing as I went, kind of looking at the future, seeing what was possible, seeing what it was that I wanted to do and what I thought I was able to do, or we were all as a group able to accomplish with what I had to work with, and what the way the music business was going and what the blues scene was like at the time. And I kept just kind of putting one foot in front of the other and doing the next right thing. And
Yeah.
you know, I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to make records. I wanted to make good records, and I wanted to go on tour, and I wanted to travel, and I wanted to be able to sustain myself and my family by doing this work.
And
I
you're
did
one of
all.
the yeah, and you're one of the rare few that have succeeded in that aspect, you know. So let me ask you, if you were starting out now in 2022, young Tommy Castro, would you still do it in light of the way the business is with streaming and everything, or maybe you'd have some other suggestions?
Um, that's a good question. People, I get asked a lot by younger up and coming artists, what should they do? And it's hard to answer the question because I only know what I did in the early 90s to get off the ground. And then from once you have a good start like that, then it's just a matter of not screwing it up. You just once you
Right,
have you just got to keep it going and try to improve on it, try to improve on all aspects of it. And while this was happening, you don't know that the world's going to change as much as it's going to change. We had no idea that the internet was coming along, and
right,
we had no idea that the people weren't going to be, there were not going to be record stores. We had no idea any of that was
right,
going to happen. So you just
right.
survive it and go through and do the best you can. And I'm amazed that all of us are still in business, the way things have changed, but
Sure.
there's an upside and a downside to all of that.
Yeah.
This is one thing people don't think about, but I do. You have Spotify, pays very little. My music gets played on Spotify. It's a great thing, but there's not much revenue from that. But
Yeah.
what there is playlists. So I get on a playlist, and millions of people could hear my songs for the first time that would never even think to listen to a Tommy Castro record because
Yeah.
I'm on some Spotify playlist or an iTunes playlist or
Sure.
it's on YouTube mix of some
Yeah.
kind. You listen to Buddy Guy on YouTube, I might pop up as an option. If you like this, you might like this.
Right.
Those are the upsides
There
of
is,
all this. And to
yeah.
be honest, we make our living on live performances. That's where most of our income comes from. And so my biggest goal is people buying tickets and showing up at a show.
Right. Yeah.
And that really helps us a lot because on XM radio, for instance,
Sure.
or you're listening to your show, that traditional radio has always been there for us. And we really appreciate what you and a lot of guys like you all over the country do for us. It's an important part of the puzzle, big piece of the puzzle. But these other things have come along, and although the internet has taken things away from us, it also has brought us other things.
Yeah.
So
I mean, when you look at the
try to be
Spotify
optimistic.
thing, you're getting paid, for the free service, probably like, half a cent or 6/10 of a cent per stream, which isn't a lot. And I think their concept is, well, that's one person clicking on it, so that's all it's worth. But it's not necessarily just that. I could be the front of house engineer for your tour somewhere at a festival and be using your music through the house system, and thousands of people could hear it. Now, do you think that stream is worth half a cent in that circumstance? No. So there's got to be a little better balance there, where I think it should be closer to a penny or 2 cents per stream. And that's why I think there's a lot of uproar over Spotify right now. And I think it's in a very subverted way, part of the Neil Young thing, where he's drawing attention to one thing, but at the same time, it's like, hey, they're not really paying us well, too. I mean, there's that free speech issue, but it's also like drawing attention to, hey, these artists, their music, their content is not being altered in any way, shape, or form, but it's what you're using for your billion-dollar business to profit from. So so
Yeah.
there's a whole number of sides to that, and hopefully things will change. But here's the other thing. If they did raise the cost of a stream to a cent or 2 cents, imagine how many artists around the world would become millionaires that much quicker. And you'd have all these artists running around with all this money, and you wonder how things would change with, the way politics works and stuff
I
like
think you
that.
put the money in the hands of a bunch of artists and the world would improve immensely.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
there's that whole aspect to it. But anyway, I just want to get back to
But I would, the answer to the question though is I would I do it? Yeah, because I mean, I wouldn't trade my life for anything. I think about all the experiences that I've had alone. Deanna likes to refer to it as the other currency. Everybody wants
right,
money is a thing. Everybody could use it, and no matter some people. My personal feelings about it is I just need enough. I just need enough. I don't need any
right,
more than I just need enough to my basic needs. A few things, a few luxuries here and there, some travel,
right,
some fun. I'd like to have a good life, but I only need so much money. Money's important, but it's only so important. The other thing that we get in exchange for what we in our work is these amazing experiences and meeting incredible people along the way and going
right,
to amazing places and you have all of these people that have been affected by my music. There's nothing more satisfying than realizing that this work that I've done that I love and care about and put out there actually affects other people's lives in a positive way to the
sure,
point where they feel like I'm a member of their family.
right,
When
right,
somebody passes away, I get people reaching out to me saying, we'd like you to if you could say a few words to the family because we're going to be burying our father, we'd like to hear a few words from you, or they play one of my songs, in at their wedding.
right, right.
It's really
It's beautiful, and
that's
I
the
love
other currency that Deanna was kind of
that's what I was just
talks
going to
about.
say. I think is Deanna there, or she's feel free to bring her over and
She's
say hi.
around. She's around. She may or may not want to pop in. It's it's only up to her. I don't know. She might
I
not.
just want to let our listeners know I've got Tommy Castro here on the line, and we're going to be broadcasting the Zoom chat of this on YouTube and some other places, so that we can have some more engagement with our listeners for his upcoming 30th anniversary tour. And his special guest is his girlfriend Deanna Bogart, who's a fabulous musician in her own rights, saxophone player and pianist and vocalist, songwriter.
Look her up if you're not familiar. Please look her up. She's just put a new website together. There's a lot of cool information, and of course, she's on all the usual social medias. Are you presentable, my dear? You want to come in and say hi real quick? Just peek in.
Ready for a run? Absolutely.
She's on her way to go jogging.
Oh, beautiful.
Come here, you.
Hi.
Hiya.
Nice
How
to
you
meet you,
doing?
Deanna.
Did you ever meet Tommy Z?
I think we have we?
I don't think so.
He's been to Buffalo, but maybe you guys missed each other.
Well,
Sure,
I
I
heard
was.
the name.
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean, there's a few different Tommy Z's out there. There's some swanky
Ah,
nightclub promoter in Chicago. There's a football player. There's a boxer, and I hear there's a porn star too. So.
Oh, there you go. Look, you're a wonderful.
And but anyway, it's a pleasure to meet you, Deanna. I'm looking forward to hearing you and seeing Tommy again and catching up with everybody at the Trouth on March 18th, right here in Buffalo for their 30th anniversary tour. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's great. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yep, great.
all right,
So
I'll
yeah,
catch up to you later.
I'm heading.
I'll chase you down the street.
Nice to meet you.
Ow!
See you.
you too. All right, man. Thanks. Well, that's about it.
Knock my eye out there.
But I didn't.
All right.
Sorry, honey.
Let's see.
So
Well,
yeah,
I guess that's about it, Tommy.
yeah.
Always a pleasure, man. I usually have to find my way to your studio and find my way in and out of that place. And remember last time me and Tinsley we got a little bit lost.
You know what? It's actually I didn't actually I wanted to tell you at the beginning of the conversation, but you are going to be my last interview on Sunday nights for the show because we're going to be moving to Saturdays. I'm going to be moving over to Saturday nights and splitting up the
Awesome.
night with Pat Fellball. But you have been on the show more times than anybody. This is your
Wow.
fourth time with me. I think Tinsley's coming in at a close second, and um, I'm looking forward to seeing him again and bringing him on the show. But yeah, I mean, it's just been a pleasure, becoming friends and playing with you and getting to know you over the years, and happy to have you on the show and promote your artistry.
Thank you, man. Hey, and I'm gonna give one shameless promotion uh, shout out to well, my band has been nominated for a Blues Music Award as Band of the Year, and the record's been nominated for 3 or 4 categories. Album of the Year, a few other things, and I've got a couple of nominations. Altogether, we got up for 6 Blues Music Award nominations this year. And if you're not a member of the Blues Foundation, I would like to ask you to join. It's a really great organization. It's the monthly, the yearly membership is $25 or something like that. And they, support the International Blues Challenge every year, where artists from all over the world get a chance to come to Memphis, Tennessee and compete and and be discovered, and
Well,
careers have started from that,
You did it and I did it, right?
We've all done it, and so many people that are doing really well in the music business and blues world right now. It started at the IBCs, and then of course, they host the Blues Music Awards every year. They have the Blues Hall of Fame in Memphis, where it's open to the public there, and it's got a beautiful museum of blues music there, and they just they do a good job of pulling everybody who's interested in blues from around the world. They kind of are the glue that holds it all together and gives us places to meet and network and and keep this thing going and keep it alive. So
Who
we'd
else
appreciate
is
you
going to
going
do it?
online, and if you think the record deserves it, man, give us your vote. We'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Maybe we can add to the other 6 that you've already won for Entertainer of the Year, and I think vocalist and guitarist too, right?
I like to see the band win. I'm always glad to see the band got a nomination. We'll see what happens for me, but like I say, I'm really proud that the band got nominated Band of the Year, and really that's the one I'm interested in. The rest, we'd be nice to get another award of some kind, but that's the one I'm mostly interested in.
I agree with you there because, as you and I know all too well, it's our name on the marquee all the time. The
Yeah.
the albums and the interviews and a lot of the attention and accolades, all focus on that, singular thing. All too often, when there is really always a team that puts it all together, and that includes your bass player Randy and Mike on keyboards, Emerson, I believe. I'm not sure who's.
Mike Emerson, Bowen Brown on drums.
Okay, I wasn't sure who was on drums, but yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. It's like, we'd love to see our bandmates get more credit than they get.
Because they work hard, and they really, I know this. I said this the other day. I know that they're, everybody wants to have a gig that is a steady gig. There's going to be that they can depend on, throughout the year, and so all professional musicians are interested in having a solid, steady gig. And but I know that the main reason that they're with me through all of this is because they believe in the music, and they actually support me mostly, they believe in the music that we're playing and the shows that we put on and the records that we make. They all are proud of what we do and want to be a part of it. And the fact that it's not a bad gig is
Right.
It doesn't hurt, but I don't think that's why they're here. There's a lot of other things they could do.
Sure.